I'm Brianna Bosch and I own Blossom and Branch Farm. As a fifth-generation farmer, I've learned a lot about different methods and techniques in farming and gardening, and I'm here to share with you the ones that we found to work the best. Welcome to the farm.
Hey guys, we're here at Blossom Branch Farm, and today I'm going to be showing you my favorite dahlia varieties from this year and also how to save your dahlia seeds if you want to grow some dahlias from your own seeds and maybe find some new varieties. The girls are here. We are just saving some zinnia seeds. They've picked their favorite flowers of the year. If you didn't get to watch that video and see how we save our zinnia seeds, head back and watch our zinnia video from a couple days ago. And otherwise, we're gonna head over to the field, take a look at dahlias. Let's go. I'm also gonna show you guys a trick to drying your dahlias if you've been looking to dry dahlias. And while you can hang dahlias to dry, it doesn't always work all that well because they get really fragile. So in fact, what we found is that dahlias do better if they're dried in silica, and that lets us be able to use them for lots of fun crafts. In fact, I saw someone on social media was coating their silica dried dahlias with a resin, and then they were like these beautiful paperweights. So just some ideas if you're looking to save them. But first, we're gonna go take a look at some of our favorite varieties and show you which ones to grow. If you can only grow a few, dahlias can be really expensive. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to be a little bit choosy. That being said, there's always new varieties being bred, and so trying new ones can be fun too. But these are kind of my tried and true that I always grow here at the farm. It is about probably 4 days before our first frost, and the bees are still really enjoying these late season dahlias. Now, you might know that we overwinter our dahlias, which means we don't dig them up. So a lot of people this time of year are showing how they dig up their dahlias. That is not something that I do here in Zone 5. I actually overwinter our dahlias, which means I leave them in the ground. We just cover them with mulch. We'll be showing how we do that again. Now here's our other row of dahlias. These also have been overwintered. So these are second year in the ground here. And this is where some of my favorites are growing. So I'm just gonna quickly go down the row and show you some of the ones that we're growing and then show you which ones are my favorites. Now this is a new one this year that we've been growing called Terracotta, and they are stunning. They're more of a cactus shaped dahlia, so they kind of have these little twisty thin petals out toward the outside. Goes with my favorite color, which happens to be peach. When they're small, they're like this. They have a darker center. Now, one of the things that I like about this dahlia, aside from the color and the shape, is that it has a nice upward face. So sometimes with new dahlias, we're never sure which way they're gonna face. Sometimes they can face downward. I like these ones that kind of have a mix of facing straight up and out. It makes them really good for bouquet work versus ones that face downward. Over here, we've got one of my favorites. Now this brings me to my probably top producer. And while it doesn't maybe necessarily seem all that impressive, I really adore this one, and we have a bunch of them growing here. This is called Cornell Bronze, and Cornell Bronze is an orangey dahlia, and what I like about these ball form dahlias is that they're really, really great for vase life. So when we are, surprised the little bee. So when we are looking at vase life of dahlias, usually it's not very long. Dahlias just tend to have a naturally shorter vase life, usually maybe 4 days. But the ball form dahlias we can usually get 5 or 6 days out of, compared to especially a dinner plate dahlia, which we definitely don't get very much vase life from, which is fine for things like weddings and events or if you're having a dinner party. But typically if I'm going through all the hassle of cutting, making an arrangement at home, I want something that's gonna last at least a few days. So that's why I like growing these ball form dahlias. And you can see that these have a nice compact ball form. And again, really pretty in fall. So these kind of orangey, peachy tones. I'm gonna show you all of these together at the end so you can get an idea of this kind of effect when you get them all together and combined. So Cornell Bronze, definitely one of my top ones. Second up, we have Rock Run Ashley. Rock Run Ashley is certainly a paler peach color. So where the Cornell Bronze, if we look at a bronze, for example, compared to a Rock Run Ash, you can see this is a much more subtle peach. It's not quite as pink as a Jowie Winnie, which is one of my other favorites, but it is a nice, pretty subtle peach. It also has a nice form to it, nice strong stems, long stems, as you can see. The one downside of this one is it does tend to be more outward facing. So you can see how if we're putting this in a market bouquet, it is a little bit more difficult because it only faces out. So if we put this one in the center of a bouquet, you don't get quite the same effect as these ones that like to face a little bit more upwards and outwards. Down here is a classic. We grow a lot of these for weddings. This is Sweet Natalie. Sweet Natalie is a classic wedding dahlia, and it does tend to be a cooler pink to me. So we have another one that's a similar tone that's a little bit warmer called Cafe au Lait. It's also a different form. This is kind of a hybrid, so it's more of a water lily form. So it's not quite a ball dahlia, and it's not a dinner plate dahlia, which can be really, really big, like this Cafe au Lait right here. So the Sweet Natalies are good for cooler pinks. Again, they don't quite go with the peaches to me because they're a little bit more pink, but really, really stunning on their own, and especially with whites or pinks. Over here, we've got those, as I mentioned, Cafe au Lait. Oh, and I do love these. These were probably one of the first dahlias I ever grew. And it's just, there's just something so stunning and whimsical about them. So they have this beautiful unfurling center, these huge creamy peachy petals, just really, really gorgeous for wedding work. All right, excuse me, chrysanthemums. Let me sneak through here. These chrysanthemums are just living their best lives right now. As the season goes on, it is interesting to see how they change their color palette as well, because they're a little bit more bleached out here this time of year, and when they first start blooming, they're a little bit more saturated. Here's a big old bumblebee. I haven't seen one of you guys for a while. I thought you were all hibernating. Enjoying my next favorite dahlia. This variety is called Jowie Winnie, and Jowie Winnie, it's this stunning color, this peachy on the inside fading to this darker pink. As they mature on the plant, they get a little bit paler, and they even can have a little bit of yellow, orange in them. They go with pretty much everything else grow in terms of all these different Queenie Lime zinnias, these Royal Glamour, chrysanthemums, this basil. These just kind of go with everything. Oh, look at you, you little holdout, Japanese beetle. You stinker. And the Jowie Winnie's definitely one of my top favorite producers for this kind of fall color palette. So again, we've got so far our Cornell Bronze, our Terracotta, our Cafe au Lait, our Jowie Winnie, our Rock Run Ashley, and then I'm going to show you my other favorite one, which is not one I think that a lot of people would list necessarily in their list of favorite dahlias, because it's just not that impressive as far as form goes, but it has a couple big pros. One is that it's my earliest blooming dahlia, so when it's July and everyone is chomping at the bit for dahlias, this one's bloom the first. The other thing that I love about them is the range of colors that this dahlia comes in. And the last thing that I really enjoy about these ones is how prolific they are. It even sometimes gets mixed up in my garden for a zinnia because of the size. Again, not a huge dahlia, although sometimes that can be really nice when it comes to working with these flowers. Very nice and upright. So we talked about use in bouquets and how sometimes if they're outward facing, they're a little harder to use. This is Wine-Eyed Jill, and Wine-Eyed Jill, nice and upright. Look how prolific. These are all Wine-Eyed Jill right here. They're just really thriving. Now again, these have been blooming for a little bit here, so they're definitely more yellowed out than they usually are, but what I want to show you is how many different color tones they come in. So this variety is called Wine-Eyed Jill because it's typically a darker in the center, usually a darker red, but this time of year they're starting to go to seed, which we're going to show you how to harvest in a second. But look at the range in colors. So if I grab these all together, and I will at the end of this, we'll see how they all complement each other in these ranges of pinks and yellows and peaches. So it looks like a lot of different dahlia varieties, even though it's just one. So if you want a lot of color range and a really prolific dahlia, easy maintenance, is very tall and an early bloomer, that Wine-Eyed Jill is such a great option. Here we have a peaches and cream, not necessarily my favorite, but we have definitely cut out a lot of those ones that are not my favorites over the years. I just don't really grow them anymore. If I don't love them, I don't grow them. If you're looking for a white dahlia, by the way, these are Boom Boom White. Look at how tall they are. So just for reference, here I am. Here's these dahlias. And really great for things like brides, people looking for straight white gardens, very, very prolific, obviously incredibly tall. Now the downside of white flowers is that they do tend to be more pest prone, or they show more pest damage for sure. So if you are not wanting one that shows a lot of pest damage, white might not be the best option. Let's talk quickly about saving dahlia seeds. A couple things you should know about saving dahlia seeds. One is that if you love a dahlia and you save the seed from it, unfortunately, it is not guaranteed that it's going to be the same dahlia. In fact, it won't be the same dahlia. It will be something that has been cross-pollinated. It will be, there's a stick on my head. It will basically probably not look very much like the parent dahlia at all. So a lot of times the ones you grow from seed are going to be open face. They're not going to have all those petals in the center. They tend to be a little bit more on the reds and yellows side of the color spectrum. So if you want a dahlia that is true to the parent form, then you'll want to dig up and divide your tubers. We have a whole separate video about that. But saving seeds can be a great way to expand your dahlia collection and to potentially even discover some new dahlias that are unique to your garden and no one else will have by growing them from seed. So if you grow them from seed and you find one that you like, then you can go ahead and save your tubers, propagate it from tuber. That will make sure that you have the same variety as the tuber that you saved. So the other thing about saving seeds is that if you want to save seeds from your dahlias, you need to let them go to seed. That means you can't be continually cutting. You have to reserve some that you're going to designate for seed production. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we would save some dahlia seeds. So let's look at what I mean. So where normally on a farm we are constantly deadheading and cutting these back, if we know we want to be saving some for seed, we are going to let them bloom and fade on the plant. So you can see these ones here have started to fade, the petals are dried, and what you get is this kind of cone-shaped seed pod. So where a new bud can look kind of like this, bumblebee's getting a little last forage. The buds can look similar. So the buds before they bloom look kind of like this. The pods are a little more cone-shaped. So here's a seed pod. What we look for is these nice dried out petals. And now we're gonna go look and see where the seed is. I'm gonna show you exactly where they are so that if you wanna grow some from seed, you can. Seed starting dahlias is actually surprisingly easy. Usually one started from seed will provide blooms in basically the same amount of time that a tuber would provide blooms. So it's not that you get, so if you're concerned that you're going to be getting dahlias later, if you're starting from seed, that's not the case. You usually get them in the same amount of time as you do from a tuber grown dahlia. I've got my seed pod here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start breaking it apart. What I'm gonna do is I'm gently gonna pull this apart. And in the center is where we're going to find our dahlia seeds. They're fairly easy to spot. These are typically darker. And down here in the center, if these had time to fully mature, is where they'd be. Now they're a little bit harder to spot because they're usually wrapped in this kind of papery casing. Now the longer these dahlias have to mature on your plant, the more seeds you're going to get. So in my zone, which is a little bit colder, we don't always get all that many dahlia seeds. But here is one. And you can see I'm just removing this light colored casing. And then here we have this darker inner part, which is the dahlia seed. So the dahlia seed is elongated, it's dark, but what we want to do is make sure that it's not hollow. So sometimes these can be hollow. So we want to do what's called grading and make sure that they are not hollow. Here is another one. I'll get this one as well. Peel off this little outer casing here. Here's another seed. We'll line those up and then we're going to check them all. I'm just going to use a pen and gently press down on them. You can see if there's a little embryo inside there. And you can usually just feel them because you'll feel these little pieces that are inside the dahlia. They just don't have that much bulk to them, but when you hit a seed, you can feel it. It's got a firmness to it. So I've got 4 seeds here. So I'm just gonna give them a little poke. So I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm going to give it a little press. Same with this one. I'm gonna test and see if it's hollow. So when I press down on the seed with my pencil, it's full. I can feel there's something in there. So this is a good one. This is a keeper. When I press down on this one, I think this one is hollow. So that's not a keeper. Here's another one. I can feel it even just from touching it, really, that it's firm. It's got something in there. I press down on it. It doesn't give. So there's another one. And here's this last one. Oh, pretty soft and squishy. I'm going to discard that one. So I've got 2 good keepers. Now, starting dahlias from seed is pretty simple. All you'll need to do is start them inside about 6 weeks before your last frost and then transplant them out after last frost. Again, they do grow pretty quickly. They will develop a tuber over the season that you can dig up and save. So again, if you find a dahlia that you've planted from seed that you really love and you want to save, you can dig up the tuber, or you can overwinter them like we do and save yourself the work of digging and storing. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'm going to start packing these dahlia seeds away, drying them out, and getting them ready to plant. Drying them out, we'll dry them on a paper towel or just on the table for about a week. Pack them away in a paper envelope and store them until spring when it's going to be time to start.
All right, so I promised you guys I was going to show you how I dry dahlias. So I'm going to do that really quickly because you can hang dahlias to dry. While that does work, it's not going to result in these really strong colors. So instead what I have here is some pans, and I also have a whole thing full of silica. Now, if you're dealing with silica, please try not to breathe it in. That's not good for you. But what silica is going to do is it's going to dry out these flowers and preserve the color. I'm going to start by taking my pan, and I'm going to layer in some silica first. So I'm going to do a layer of silica in the bottom, and this is color changing silica. So any silica, as it dries, this one has some like color change technology. So as it dries, it changes, I believe it changes to green from orange. Anyway, it starts one color, and then once it's all dry, and then that way you know when your flowers in there are dry. So I'm gonna arrange my flowers here in a single layer, making sure that none of them are touching. And silica you can buy in bulk. I'll link it here below. And I'm going to cover this with another layer of silica. I've got all these leaves in here. So now we'll just come in. We want to make sure that we totally coat and get it in every little petal here. You will need quite a bit of silica to do this. I believe this is a couple bags worth that I've got here, and you'd probably want to be doing this in batches, so not all at once, because it does take about a week for it to work. So if you're wanting to dry a lot, a couple bags of this is gonna be best for you. So once you have these fully covered, I'm gonna actually do one more layer here, and then we're gonna leave these again for about a week. Make sure these ones are a little bit smaller so that I can fully top them off with the silica. All right.
We have so much seed saving to do this time of year, so I'm going to get back to it. If you want to learn more about saving seeds, you can go back and watch our video from last fall. I'm going to link it here below. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, and share all those good things. We'll see you guys around here next time in the Dahlia patch.